Now I would like to invite Raffi, and then Guven, and then Dr. Astarjan. Cheers.
Thank you, Giray. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be part of the panel tonight to talk about this very timely issue. Most Armenians, when we think about 1915, we think of Turks against Armenians, and we forget, or we don't understand the role of the Kurds in this issue. So the problem is not only between Turks and Armenians, but past problems and also future resolutions will be between Armenians and Turks, Armenians and Kurds, and Turks and Kurds. So it's a triangle. It's not a two-party issue. As we know, history, facts cannot be denied that the Ittihad Terakki leadership of Ottoman Empire, they used the Kurds to carry out the deportations, massacres, which is now defined as genocide. Kurds mostly became ready, willing, and able instruments of killing, and did most of the killing on behalf of the Turkish leadership. And they also benefited from the proceeds of the crime, let's say, because they were right where most of the Armenians used to live, in the homeland, 4,000-year-old homeland. So they, with impunity and with a reward that when they kill, they will also end up owning the Armenian assets and properties, etc. Unfortunately, they did this, and eventually, when there were no Christian Armenians, Assyrians, or Pontic Greeks left in Turkey, then the Turkish leadership turned against the Kurds, and they told them, you don't exist. You are not a Kurd. You are a mountain Turk. And when you walk in the snow, your shoes make noises, kart kurt, that's why you are called Kurd. But there's no Kurdish language, no Kurdish history, there's no Kurdish culture. You don't exist. So for the past 100 years, Armenians try to fight against the denial that they were killed, and the Kurds try to fight against the denial that they live, they exist. So when a Armenian priest was being butchered by a Kurdish chieftain in Diyarbakir, he predicted, he said that today we are breakfast food for the Turks, but you Kurds, you will become the lunch meal for the Turks. And that has happened, and Kurds have suffered since then. Now, without going into too much history, I just want to give you 5 portraits to explain, as Giray said, how fragmented and how complicated the Kurdish-Armenian interaction is. First is Sara, a girl in Urfa. Her family was captured in 1915 by the Kurdish chieftain there, Eyüp Aga, and he had his eye on this girl. He wanted to get her as his third wife. Sara resisted. Eyüp killed her mother. Sara still resisted. Eyüp killed her father. When the turn came for her brother, Sara couldn't resist anymore, and she accepted to become his wife, as long as she can keep her name and as long as the brother is spared. Eventually, the brother was also killed, and Sara started a life of hell, and she was pregnant 15 times, had 15 babies, which all died, and she was tortured by her husband, a cross made on her body in several places, and she died without smiling. There are hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of Armenian girls who are captured by Kurds as maids, slaves, or wives, and their genes are now mixed with Kurds and Armenians together. Another Sara from Dersim this time, her family was saved by Kurds, by Alevi Kurds. Dersim Alevis have acted differently from most of the other Kurds, and they have protected the Armenians. But of course, in time, this Sara and her family, they became assimilated, and they became Alevi Kurds. And her granddaughter joined the Kurdish resistance fight, became a guerrilla fighter. She rose in the ranks of PKK to become the highest woman fighter, and her code name, her nom de guerre in the fight, was Sara, respecting her Armenian grandmother. And she was shot a few years ago in Paris offices of PKK. So that's another part of Armenian Kurdish interaction, that there are a lot of Armenian families which were saved but became Islamicized or Kurdified, and they remained as hidden Armenians. Then we have a family in Elazığ, Harput, named Bayrak, and they are the patriarchs of a clan. Kurds have clans, tribes, ashiret in Turkish, that goes in tens of thousands in numbers. So this family has 25,000 members, and they belonged to the Hamidiye regiments, and they took part in the 1915 massacres in Harput, and they amassed a big fortune. The fortune was then, in 1980, was taken in a big truck, 6 tons of gold coins, 800,000 Ottoman coins, and several trunks of jewelry, and they were spirited into Credit Suisse in a Swiss bank. And since then, they are trying to get it back into Turkey because it's the present government is more friendly to them. But the Swiss bank is refusing to release the money, asking them where did this fortune come from. And we all know where it came from. It's Armenian blood money. So that's another part of Kurdish, Turkish, Armenian interaction. Then we have Osman Baydemir, the former mayor of Diyarbakir, and he not only acknowledged the Armenian genocide and the Kurds' role in it, but he also acted upon it. Other Kurdish leaders, unlike Turkish leaders, they have started facing up to history, and they have acknowledged, but they haven't done any action on it. But Baydemir not only, as I said, helped understand this issue and explain to the Kurdish people, but when the time came to reconstruct the Armenian church there, Surp Giragos, he facilitated all the approvals, and he provided 1/3 of the funds to build this church. And his explanation was not like giving to charity, but he said, whatever we give back to you is not enough compared to what we have done to you in the past. So it's like paying back a debt, the way he saw it, and he welcomes the Armenians along with his buddy, the mayor of the local municipality, Sur, where the Surp Giragos church is, and they both welcome Armenians home back. And as part of this church reconstruction, they also organized, along with our help, an Armenian language course. And even though there are no Armenians living, identifiable, legally identified Armenians, hundreds of people visit this church every day, and Armenian language courses started there. And as Jigar mentioned, I was privileged to give the first Armenian concert in that church. And one of the Armenian language course graduates there, an 11-year-old girl named Melis, a Kurdish girl, she not only learned Armenian, but she also sang in Armenian during my concert. So as a reward to these graduate Kurds in the Armenian language course, this summer we're going to take 51 of them to Armenia as a tour, a 2-week tour. And this is the way that the hidden Armenians now are more encouraged to come out. There are hundreds and thousands of Kurds who are Kurds in appearance, but they have Armenian blood in them, and with help, with encouragement, they are now finding their roots. And in terms of our expectations from Kurds, I think that we should have 2 expectations. One is they should be with us, seeking justice and restitution, not against us, so that it will be win-win this time, not lose-lose like 100 years ago. And secondly, I hope that the Kurds who live in former historic Armenia, they will encourage and not discourage the appearance or coming out of the hidden Armenians there. Thank you, and then we will continue. Suleyman.
Good evening. First of all, I would like to offer my thanks to KGARD for organizing this panel. I'm among you as a friend and also relative, actually. You may, when you hear, you may be surprised, because there are 2 Armenian women in my family. I mean, 2 cousins of my father got married to Armenian women. So, I would like to touch my relation, first of all, my family relation to the Armenian nation. As I say this, the name of my village is Zarik. I asked my elder people, or my family, and they didn't know the meaning of it. And I checked with the Armenian friends. They said this is, Zarik means is a flower in the Armenian language. And there used to be 2 Armenian churches in our village that did not exist. They were level. We know they are our houses, like in the village, used to be, not anymore. My house, our house in the village, doesn't exist anymore. Our house just between 2 churches. It was there, used to be. So there are more Armenian graveyards than Kurdish Alevis in the village. Very strange, also very, I don't know, very interesting, actually, I found it. And Armenians, you know, they used to build irrigation system. They bring, you know, like water from through the mountains, and they, you know, farm the land. But those are lands, you know, I've been thinking that Kurdish Alevis never, you know, touch actually that land. I consider it as kind of cursed land. And now I came to the conclusion that this maybe is a cursed land, because it's very fertile, but they never touch it. So, I mean, this is the relationship, like as I said. And my grandmother told me that, you know, she said one day in the morning we woke up and we saw that our Armenians neighbors gone. And she didn't know where they had gone. I mean, what happened to them? But she was sad. She said, I still miss them, because they were good people. They were good neighbors. Yes, Armenians lived. For instance, my ancestor, according to the family tree, moved to our village in the 16th century. And before us, who lived there? Of course, Armenian people were living there, because they have more settlement, more signs that they were there. So this is my relationship with as a family with the Armenian nation. And I would like to touch the issue of relationship between people of Dersim and Armenians actually. In between 1895-97, I am just quoting. I didn't bring my notes because I forgot to be in the book of Nuri Dersimi, because he talks about the Armenians. He's also related to me. Unfortunately, I was tired because of this Branford issue, and I had a hard couple days, and I had a hard time. So, in that book, between 1895-97, Armenian fighters escaped from the Ottoman Empire and, took refuge in Dersim. Among those groups, there is a famous Armenian commander, Rupen Shishmanyan. What happens, like in his team, there are also 18 very good fighters. Ottoman Empire, offers Ibrahim Pasha, the father of Sayyid Rıza, 1,000 gold coins in exchange of Rupen Shishmanyan and his team. But Ibrahim Pasha refuses. Ottoman Empire every time increased the amount of gold. However, it was turned down every time. And then, at the end, Ibrahim Pasha asked his son Sayyid Rıza, the rebellious leader of Dersim, to take, Rupen and other Armenians to the Russian border, which he did. And what happened? Rupen declared Sayyid Rıza as his brother and gave him a very precious sword as a sign of his brotherhood. But what happens? His real brother actually betrays Rupen, and then he returns to Erzincan in 1903, where he was caught and hanged. People of Dersim and Sayyid Rıza lamented for a long time for Rupen. 1915, of course, genocide, while genocide was taking place, according to Dr. Nuri Dersimi, he said, I witnessed 36,000 Armenians took refuge in Dersim. And people of Dersim built up an orphan house and a dormitory in Agzunik area. So, he said some of them escaped from genocide, but some of them were saved by people of Dersim. When the Russian army came down and invaded Erzincan, so under the supervision of Dersim leadership, most of the Armenians were handed over to Russian army safely. However, some of the Armenians stayed in Dersim. After the agreement reached, they left for United States, Syria, and Istanbul. When we look at that, actually, the facts that, there is unbreakable historical ties between Armenians and people of Dersim. On the contrary, what happened that on the other side, when the other Kurds were involved in this massacre, genocide, and on the other hand, when the Kurds have their blood, their Armenian blood in their hands, it's a shame, it's a stain in the history of Kurdish people. Are we always conscious? No, actually, so, no, even I myself found myself ignorant because I have two relatives, two Armenian relatives. I went to their house many times, sitting down a long time, having food. I never asked them what happened to their family. I never questioned. And after so many years, I found myself ignorant. That's bad. So, yes, Kurdish leaders recognize Armenian genocide. Is it enough? No, it's not enough. For instance, in Kurdish parliament in exile, on the 18 years ago, actually, 17 years ago, they recognize Armenian genocide. The chairman, Zubair Aydar, says, I condemn Ottoman Empire and Hamediya regiments for the genocide and, condemn for this murder with abhorrence. So that's a statement. And also, we heard statements like from co-chair of DTK, Democratic People's Congress, Ahmet Türk. He said, well, our grandfathers, persecuted Armenians, Assyrians, Yazidis, and were involved in genocide. As a grandchildren, I am apologizing. And again, my friend mentioned about the mayor of Sur, Abdullah Demirtas. He said, we are responsible for the suffering of Armenian people. And again, co-chair of BDP, Peace and Democracy Party, Selahattin Demirtas, said, if Prime Minister talks about, brotherhood of people, first he has to apologize. What happened to Armenians, Assyrians, Alevis? So, the leader of PKK, Abdullah Öcalan, Mr. Öcalan said, well, Armenians were subject to physical genocide because they were smart. When it comes to Kurds, they were scattered and they were subject to other type of massacres. They were kind of living a life between human being and animal, he said. I don't know why you use that word, I don't know. That's the thing. Well, in order to, it's again, as I said, recognition of Armenian genocide, it's not enough. As a first step, it's good enough. It's good, but it's not enough. I believe that reconciliation and healing process, hasn't taken place on the Kurdish side, actually. And it must take place. Because if you accept, responsibility in this genocide, it's horrific crimes, then we know we must do things, not the word. It seems that, it comes, except just two examples. We see that in Diyarbakir. I must have noted that before genocide, the population, more than half of Diyarbakir population was Christians. The majority of them were Armenians. What happened? None left. So, I also just, I believe that reconciliation, healing process must start as soon as possible. We need to tell, in order to create healthy atmosphere and bright future based on peace and harmony, we need to tell our children that what happened to, our neighbors. If you don't tell them, then we are not real people. And also I would like to mention about the statement from the Prime Minister of Turkey. Well, he submits condolences It's a joke, you know. After 99 years later, you know, you say, instead of recognizing Armenians, you say, well, I'm sorry, I'm submitting my condolences. It's really a joke, you know. Turkey must recognize Armenian genocide. But nobody can, you know, hide the real, you know, the horrific crimes. Nobody can hide, you know, the truth forever. Turkey must face the dark history, the sad history, which inherits from the mentality of Itaat and Terak. Thank you very much.